welcome to Phillip Island, Victoria in Australia. What a setting we have for this great sporting contest, the Little Penguin Sea to Dune race. Nervous moments always as they gather on the beach, the tension mounting, and away they go. There's the defending champion, wearing his familiar navy blue and white, great waddling style. Another pre-race favourite though, losing touch with the pack. Maybe that's why. A few too many fish in the day's feeding. There's a familiar face, Skip McIntyre, 8 times a champion back in the 90s, a very successful coach now, keeping a keen eye on proceedings. This the leading group, 1 or 2 still able to put on a show for the camera, others just ploughing straight over it. Some resorting to shortcuts. Sad that cheating has crept into this beautiful sport. The judges will have a look at that. But up at the front, the pace is relentless, closing in on those sand dunes that will offer a bed for the night. The fatigue starting to tell. Who's got the finishing kick up on the outside? What a turn of pace from that one, whichever one it is. No answer from the rest, and he takes victory. What a win. There we are, into the Burrow, building an extension with his winnings, and back tomorrow to try and defend his title here on Phillip Island.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to Penguin Live TV. My name is Stephen. I'm going to be your host tonight, and joining me tonight, we have the wonderful Tom. Come on over and say hi, Tom.
I can't see the screen.
That's all right.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to all the regulars and to all the newbies. We had 2,080 penguins last night. I should know that because I was actually counting them. We should get a similar number tonight. Any interesting questions we'll try and answer tonight and try and pass through, so keep them interesting and unusual, and we'll get back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. That's right. So we had 2,080 penguins last night. I trust that number because Tom was counting them. These penguins are exhibiting a bit of an interesting behavior right now. They've been running in and out a little bit. So we have had a start to our penguin count already. The stream's running just a few minutes behind of what our penguin schedule is running at. But these penguins are a bit interesting because we have a cormorant just swimming around in the water behind them, and that cormorant just came in and dive bombed these penguins. It split the group in half. And I just saw the cormorant just back here a ways, so we'll see if it sticks its head out again. There it is at the back there. It's diving underwater. It's not really a threat to the penguins or anything, but any big bird that swoops down upon a penguin when it's just coming out of the water's edge is going to frighten the penguins. So that group's split in half. So we're seeing a bit of a half a group crossing the beach right now. The other half made it to the safety of the rocks. They're already well on their way to their homes. I do want to say a big thank you for watching us tonight, especially our viewers from the UK who are tuning in. We don't have a guest speaker tonight, but tomorrow night we will have Ray Mears. So tune in tomorrow night to have a wonderful conversation, to listen to a wonderful conversation between Sky and the wonderful Ray Mears. It should be quite interesting. And for tonight, we'll enjoy our a bit of quiet and peace with our own penguins. We'll be able to just focus on them tonight. So please ask your questions. Tom is monitoring Facebook like crazy, looking for some good questions. And I might do a bit of a Penguin 101 for those who might be new viewers to the stream. These are our little penguins that we get here in Australia. We only have the one species of penguins here in Australia called the little penguin. Their scientific name is Eudyptula minor, which means the good little diver. They are the world's smallest penguin. These guys are only 33 centimeters tall, just about a foot in height, and they weigh around a kilogram. So they are really small, which makes them the only species of penguin among the 18 species or so in the world that come out at nighttime only. The other species of penguins, they're not too fussed if they come out at day or night. There's no real danger for them. So our penguins are interesting. They're wading out onto the ocean, waiting for the sun to go down, and waiting for all those big birds of prey that might be feeling a bit hungry tonight to go to sleep. Because the main predators for our penguins on land are birds of prey. Large raptor birds that prey on small animals. If they see a penguin out in the daytime, it's going to be on their menu. So our penguins are pretty clever little birds. They know it's not safe to cross the beach until the nighttime hits. And so they're out there on the ocean. We have rafts of penguins out on the water waiting to come home. We're getting the early birds right now, one of the first of the groups that come home. There'll be hopefully a few more groups out on the ocean getting ready to come home soon. And as you can see, the sun has set here in Australia. Our local time is about 8:40, and the penguins, they always come in around half an hour after sunset. Very roughly, they come in on their own time frame. They're not really interested in what time it is specifically. They're always waiting for the darkness before they come home. And we sometimes call what they're doing is a bit of a dangerous dash across the beach. Those first and early groups, they might look a little more nervous than the groups later on when there's still a little bit of a remnant sunlight left in the sky. You might see them hunched over, a bit nervous. They're not feeling as brave as the groups will later on. And later on tonight, when it gets really dark, the penguins shouldn't be hesitating at all. And these guys right here don't look like they're hesitating too much. They're well on their way going home. Cruising on down our Penguin Highway. So this camera that we're watching on right now is located right next to our Penguins Plus stand. Any of the big groups that you saw coming across the beach, a lot of them are going to be coming this way on their journey home. This is where we get the vast majority of our penguins wandering along the highway until they find their own little personal side roads or little break-off roads where they'll turn off the main highway and head back to their own burrow. Because our penguins, they generally go back to the same burrow every night. At least the males do. Anyways, they like to own the burrows. They like to claim the burrows as their own. They tend to defend those burrows as well. So they're always going to be going back to the same burrows. Our penguins, they generally don't mate for life. So when the females are ready to find a new partner, they might find another burrow as well. All right, I haven't seen too many more penguins coming across the beach just yet. I'm going to span out onto the water and let's see if we can see any of those rafts that might be getting ready to come home. Let me know in the comments if you happen to see them. My eyes are not doing me any favors tonight. I'm not really able to spot any of those rafts, but I'm sure some of our eagle-eyed water watchers will be able to spot them. I do want to say a big welcome back to all the water watchers. Oh, just below at the bottom of the screen here. I didn't even see these ones sneak in. But a big welcome back to our water watchers. There are lovely, wonderful return viewers who seem to watch almost every single night that the penguins are coming home. And this looks like a fairly large waddle of penguins on the beach here. A group of penguins on the ocean is called a raft of penguins. On land, they're officially known as a group of penguins, but unofficially, as a bit of an endearment, a group of penguins can also be called a waddle of penguins on land. And I know that term does irritate a few of our senior rangers here who don't like the cutesy name of it, but I'm a bit of a fan. Hello, wallaby. Oh, you're going to scare our little penguins if you decide to go bounding through them. Now, this is a wallaby, one of our local swamp wallabies we get on the island. Just jumped right over those penguins. The wallabies are herbivores. They are not a threat to the penguins unless it happens to jump on one as it's just barreling through a big mob of penguins. Lovely to see these little swamp wallabies around. They're much smaller than kangaroos. They're more like a bit of a distant cousin to the kangaroos. Whereas the kangaroos are much more social. They form mobs or groups. Wallabies tend to be more solitary. They don't prefer to be too many wallabies around in one. All right. So if any of our water watchers was looking at that first group, desperately trying to count them, and without panning the camera back and forth, making it a very tricky job to count them, I believe Bill came over the radio and said it was either 143 or 243. Pretty sure it was 143 tonight. So a really good start for our first big group. All right, I'm going to swap back over to the highway camera. It's always tricky when I start these streams and there's already penguins on the move on the stream. I forget to do my introductions, acknowledgement to country. I always like to start my streams by acknowledging the land where we are broadcasting the penguins from. This is Phillip Island, also known as Malal to the Bunurong. And the Bunurong are the traditional custodians of this land. And we always like to pay our respects to their elders, both past, present, and emerging. And the Bunurong used to visit Malal for thousands of years. This wasn't a permanent home for them. It was a seasonal home where they'd come during the summer months here in Australia, where they'd come and harvest the shearwaters, the short-tailed shearwaters, harvest their eggs, harvest the shearwaters themselves. The shearwaters' diet really consists of a lot of krill. And if any of you who are maybe a little bit more along in age have suffered from joint pains, you might be taking krill oil to help you ease up those joints. And these shearwaters, because they eat krill and they secrete a lot of oil all over themselves, it's like concentrated krill oil. So if any of the Bunurong were traveling around, having a few sore joints as they were moving around, you can be assured that having a bit of shearwater oil would maybe help their joints as they traveled around. Oh, that's a massive group out there. I thought I saw something in the corner of the screen. And as we're watching this group, do we have a question, Tom?
Yeah, this is from Kaylee Kimberley, who's actually in the UK. How far from the island do our penguins go in the ocean?
Wonderful question from Kaylee.
Yep.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kaylee. Thank you for tuning in from the UK. How far do our penguins go away from our island? Well, it's a bit of a tricky question because our penguins can go a really long ways. They don't have to return home every single night. Our penguins, and in fact penguins in general, can sleep on the ocean. So they could spend days, weeks, even a month on the ocean at a time without needing to return back to land. So they can swim up to about 50 kilometers in a day, and that's a big swim if they're going to do that. And they can spend several days, a month on the ocean at a time even. They can travel long, long distances. I know we've found some of our microchips in penguins down in Tasmania, down on King Island. There's been a few of our penguins. And I believe, and I read this online, and it wasn't from a scientific journal, so take this with a grain of salt, but I read that the longest distance that a little penguin has ever swum was from Sydney over to Adelaide. And if you don't know how far that is, maybe just put it on Google Maps and do a little card, directions from Sydney to Adelaide, and see how far that is. It's a long way. So our penguins, they can go really long distances without needing to come back to land. But when they're having babies, they generally don't go too far out into the ocean because those babies need to be fed. Your mom and dad are not going to be doing a very good job at raising their offspring if they spend a month out on the ocean and those babies are left home alone, starving. So they might spend a couple of days out on the ocean, and they'll travel as far as they need to find their fish. In a good year, the fish might be nice and close to the shore, maybe 20 or 30 kilometers away. On a bad year, those fish can be quite a bit farther, maybe 80 kilometers away from the shore. So it does vary depending on the seasons and what's happening. And speaking of babies, I'm just going to zoom in on this little cutie right here. This is a little penguin's chick. I'm trying to focus him. It's a bit hard to see the fluffy feathers on this one. He's got the adult feathers on its flippers, but you got the downy feathers on its back. It's getting a bit old, just past the 6-week mark of his life. So at about 9 weeks of age, we expect our little penguins to get ready to fledge. It can happen earlier than 9 weeks. Just say 9 weeks is roughly average. Like anything in nature, you can never put a hard and fast rule on it. Some kids, they're ready to leave home at 18 years of age. Other kids, they're still living in mom and dad's basement at 30 years of age. So don't feel too bad for this penguin if it's ready to go a bit earlier than others. It's really by choice a lot of the time. Although sometimes mom and dad might just stop coming home to feed them and say it's your time to make it in. It's time for you to make it on your own in the world. Oh, I love these little close-ups of the penguins. Let's see how fast I can scan this camera and keep up with them. Wonderful. Now, if you're wondering what that glass structure is to the right, where you might see a bit of a reflection in the glass, that's our underground viewing. So if you were to come here to the Penguin Parade, you'd be able to buy tickets to either Penguins Plus, where you have a great view of the beach, or to the underground, where you would be watching the penguins just as close as this camera gets to them. It's pretty special. All right, let's swap back to the main beach and wait for some more penguins to come out. At least I managed to do an acknowledgement of country. I also like to take the time to introduce who I work for. And I work for the Penguin Parade, or the Phillip Island Nature Parks. And this is a not-for-profit conservation organization. So we use the sale of tickets and merchandise and all that good stuff where you come to our tourist attraction. We use those sales to help fund our conservation work. And we do a lot of conservation work here on Phillip Island. We take care of the largest little penguin colony in the world. This little penguin colony is about 32,000 adult penguins in size. We don't count the youngs or the juveniles. We only count the adults old enough to start trying for babies, which means that we have about 32,000 penguins who are at least a couple of years of age. And we're not going to be seeing all those 32,000 penguins tonight. As I said, the penguins do sleep on the ocean sometimes. And this is only one of many of the beaches that our penguins do come up across on the Summerlands Peninsula. But we do tend to get the highest density of penguins in this area. So we're getting a really good view tonight of what it's like for a large amount of penguins to come home. And as I said, the Phillip Island Nature Parks is a conservation organization. We work to protect the Summerlands Peninsula. I'm going to try and zoom in as the lighting is pretty good over here. We sometimes see some preening behavior. Oh, come on, focus camera. We do a lot of work not just protecting our penguins and the Summerlands Peninsula. We also have a koala conservation reserve where we protect some koalas that we have here on the island. We also took in some koalas from the bushfire affected areas of eastern Victoria and around Malakuta. Luckily, those koalas have been nursed back to health. They've been returned back into the wild, which is just fantastic news. And we worked really closely with other conservation organizations like the zoos here in Melbourne as well, to really help deal with that bit of a disaster that happened last year. It's pretty much a year ago that happened. All right, let's swap back to this. All right, fantastic. Getting these guys into view as well as they come cruising past the camera. And if you wanted to help our conservation efforts, maybe you're in the UK, unable to travel, or maybe you're in Australia and you just don't have the time off now that things are opening up again to come visit us here at the Penguin Parade, head over to our Penguin Foundation. I believe there's a link in the description of the video. The Penguin Foundation is our charity organization. You can adopt a penguin or adopt a koala or adopt a short-tailed shearwater. Any of our native animals are up for a symbolic adoption, not a real adoption. And the money that the Penguin Foundation gets does go back into helping our conservation work. They also help to fund our wildlife clinic, where we help rehabilitate a lot of injured or sick penguins. Not just penguins, does have a focus on the, sorry, I'm gonna swap cameras. Does have a focus on seabirds in general, but we can take care of other native animals that we get here on Phillip Island. So if you do wanna help out, please click on that link. We'd love to see a donation or an adoption. It does help us out in our protections here. Fantastic. We're getting really good numbers of penguins tonight. We had 2,080 last night. I'll be interested to see how many we're going to get tonight. We're getting some nice big groups coming across the beach. And if you're wondering who's counting our penguins tonight, we have Bill, who's in the skybox. He's if you're looking at this beach in this direction, look to the left of the screen, and if I was to scan all the way down to the left, you'd be able to see a white building above the main grandstands where Bill is in there with a pair of binoculars, looking up down the beach. He's counting all the penguins in these groups, and he's desperately trying to count the penguins on a few other pathways as well. He's got a very tricky job. Our penguins do make his job a little bit easier by coming home in groups together. Ooh, something just ran across the highway camera. I'm not sure what that was. I might have seen a little stripy bum. I'm just going to see if I can pan around and see it. No, I think it's gone. It might have been an eastern barred bandicoot. It was very quick and very cute looking. So Bill, his job is to count the penguins. We actually need 2 rangers to count all of the penguins because our penguins come up on the far side of the far stand, too far away to be able to really see from the skybox. We need a second ranger looking in the opposite direction to Bill, trying to count all the penguins down the far end of the beach. Ooh, that's a nice group on the Penguin Highway. Let's swap over to them. So send your best wishes to Bill in the comments. He's got a tricky job ahead of him tonight trying to count all these penguins. And hopefully we get really good numbers. Oh, fantastic. And it's really good and encouraging to see how many penguins are coming home these days. The Penguin Parade has been around for a long time. People used to come and watch the penguins back in, probably 100 years ago it first started. Do you remember when it first started? Was it
Late 20s, early
1920s? Yeah. And a gentleman, Bert West, is that his name? Yep. Yes, I nailed it. My history is awful, but I'm glad I remembered his name. A gentleman called Bert West used to take people down to these beaches here. I believe he used to pick them up off the ferry, drive them on a bus down to the beaches, and show off the penguins here on Phillip Island. And it wasn't really a conservation area as much as it is today. I mean, there's old historic pictures of Bert West out on the beach with a flashlight just shining him on the penguins. Wasn't really, oops, clicked the wrong one there. Wasn't really an ideal place for the penguins to be for a long time. It wasn't really until the 1980s, mid-1980s, that we started becoming a real conservation organization where we really worked to protect our penguins. And back in 1985, we had about 12,000 or so little penguins here on Phillip Island. And those numbers were decreasing year after year. Not due to what we were doing, but due to people in general. There was a housing estate up on the hill. Back in the 1950s, there was a golf course roughly in the smack middle of this penguin colony. I think where we had our old visitor center is where that golf course used to be situated. And all of these factors combined to make it a very difficult habitat for penguins to thrive in. And it wasn't until the mid-1980s when we realized we're losing these penguins. We really need to get our butts in gear, work at protecting their habitat, that we started doing that and we started seeing an increase in their numbers. And as I said earlier in the stream, we have about 32,000 little penguins that call Phillip Island their home, which is just fantastic to see. Their numbers have increased drastically over the years. And they seem to be really enjoying having a safe habitat that's dedicated really for them. All right, it's lovely to see another group coming in. Wow, poor Bill has got a high tide to count the penguins on tonight. It's very tricky on the high tides to be confident in the exact number of penguins crossing the beach. Sometimes on a low tide, you'll be able to double check your numbers. You count them once, you count them a second time, and curse when you have 2 slightly different numbers. But on a high tide, you count them once. There's no real time for second guessing yourself. It's a bit tricky, a little bit stressful, but Bill is up to the task. And if you want to know how many penguins we have crossing our beach tonight, you'll have to tune in tomorrow night to watch Sky and her guest Ray Mears on their show. No doubt she'll mention how many penguins have crossed our beach. Man, there's real big congestion here on these rocks, and I'm just going to zoom in. You can see a lot of preening behavior if the camera will focus a little bit better. Penguins reaching around their beaks and rubbing them all over their feathers and just nestling in their chests. And sometimes you'll see penguins reach around behind them and try and preen their tails. Oh, that camera focus is not ideal. You can do it. I believe in you, camera. You're getting worse. Don't get worse, get better. All right, I'm going to give up on that. There's no point in watching a blurry screen tonight. You can really see it from a distance anyways. Our penguins are preening themselves, keeping their feathers well maintained, intact. Their feathers are absolutely vital to their survival. It keeps their bodies waterproof, really. The feathers are a waterproof coating around their bodies, They have really high density feathers, lots and lots and lots of tiny little feathers all over their body, roughly 10,000 feathers on a penguin's body. Very roughly, I've never counted them by hand, but it's a high density, and this creates a bit of a protective coating, keeps the water off their skin, and they have a downy layer of feathers underneath their exterior feathers, and that kind of traps in the air. So if you're a penguin out in the ocean, you got a bit of a life vest around your body. I'm going to swap over to the highway camera while I'm trying to keep my train of thought. And this little bubble of air keeps them warm out on the ocean, so they don't have to deal with the chilly waters that we get here around Phillip Island. Keeps them warm, and it also keeps them floating on top of the water. So they don't have to swim in order to sleep on top of the water. They just float naturally on top of the water, keep themselves nice and buoyant and nice and safe. And if a penguin loses their waterproof coating, they're not going to sit as high in the water. If that water gets into their skin, they're going to get a little chilly. They're going to have to spend a lot of energy heating up their bodies because that cold water will reduce their core temperature quite a bit. And if they're not able to sleep as well on the ocean because they keep sinking a little too low and their head ducks under the water a little bit, they're going to have to wake up a lot more. They're not getting as much rest on the water. So it's very important for a penguin to take care of its feather. It's a matter of life and death for them sometimes. Ooh, I see another group crossing the beach on the main beach camera. Let's swap back to them. Wonderful to see so many penguins coming home. These guys are coming up in a funny spot, and another group behind them. Wonderful. It's just so good to see so many penguins coming home tonight. As I said, I'm not sure if I did say this, we are at the end of our breeding season, which means that our penguin numbers coming home to feed their chicks are drastically dropping and dropping and dropping. There's not many chicks left in the colony. There are a few left, so there are still some parents coming home pretty regularly, trying to feed up their offspring, hoping that they'll fledge in the very near future. But a lot of our penguins are entering the molting season. The next season is well underway already. If you've seen any really big penguins tonight waddling their way home, looking quite a lot larger than their fellow penguins. Hello, wallaby, you're back again. Looks like the penguins didn't even flinch at a wallaby just bounding through their group. That's hilarious. Oh, you're up here. Now that he's moving slow, the penguins are getting a bit freaked out by him. As I said, wallaby's not a threat to the penguins, except for potentially jumping on one by accident. But they're not here to hunt penguins, that's for sure. Off you go, Skippy. Oh, wonderful. Because you see, the penguins weren't too put off by them. Penguins don't have any land-based predators, no native land-based predators here in Australia. So they're not too worried about animals that are jumping around on the ground or walking around. They don't see humans as a predator per se. They do see us as a very large animal, and they might be very cautious around us naturally, as a good reaction to have against any large animal. But they don't see us as an animal that wants to eat them. And it's true, we shouldn't eat them. I believe the first Europeans came here to Phillip Island, and they thought, this is an easy to catch bird. This will be great to cook up on the barbie and have for dinner. And they tried it, and they threw up, because penguins are revoltingly oily. Just impossible to really eat. The Bunurong never used to use penguins as a source of food either. And if you know that the local indigenous the Aboriginal population is not using an easy to catch bird as a source of food, you probably shouldn't do it either. And it's not too hard to catch these penguins. All right, thanks, Tom. We got about 5 minutes left in the stream, which is fantastic. I've been telling lots of stories, which I love to do. And before I keep rambling on, do we have any more questions? I tend to ramble on, sorry.
This is from Sue Smith. How long is the molting season, or how long does the molting season go for, and probably what time of year as well?
So the molting season can last for several months. It usually starts around the beginning of February, is when we start to see our first pre-molters heading on their journey home. And it takes about 2.5 weeks. This is a very rough time frame. There's no specifics in nature, but roughly 2.5 weeks for a penguin to molt their feathers. So it's not as though penguins need several months in order to finish their molt. 2.5 weeks from roughly start to finish, and they'll be back in the ocean again, which is why you might see some chunky penguins on the stream tonight, waddling their way home. They have to double their body weight to survive 2.5 weeks without food. But when our penguins, I thought I saw more coming. When our penguins do decide to molt, and what time of the year they decide to molt does vary, because it's dependent on when they stop really feeding their chicks. So a lot of our penguins who have some late chicks this season, they're not going to start molting maybe a month from now kind of time frame. It could take them quite a bit longer to get ready for the molt. They've lost a bit of weight, maybe feeding their offspring, raising their little babies to adulthood. Because when a penguin wants to raise their chicks to adulthood, they have to regurgitate their food into their baby's mouth, which means they lose a lot of their own nutritional intake, giving it away, sacrificing it to their young. So after they raise their babies to adulthood and the babies fledge, then mom and dad have to go out and get as fat as they can, as quick as they can once they're gone. So the molting season will be continuing for a long while yet. Most of our penguins haven't really started the molts just yet. A lot of them will be going out trying to get as fat as they can, but they're not coming home to molt for a while yet. Oh, I can see a little group on the screen above, but I might keep my focus here on the beach, seeing as we got a couple of minutes left. And there's still penguins coming out. Whoa, something's happening down here. What's going on? Oh, that's all right. We got 2 stages of development here. We've got the bottom penguin is a chick, and the one above is a molting penguin. So the molters are feeling a little hangry at times. This molter is well on its way. It's already got the adult feathers around its head. You can just see a little puffy lower down section. So it's been going for a while without food, and if a hungry chick comes up and asks them for food, it's going to put them in a terrible temper. So you'll sometimes see a molting penguin telling off the expectant young chicks looking for food, saying, "Not a chance. Get away from me. I'm hungrier than you." And Skippy's back. Got a few wallabies on the beach tonight. That's wonderful. So we'll have to wrap up in the very near future. I do want to say a big thank you to all of our viewers who tune in night after night, the wonderful water watchers that watch every single night that we've been streaming. It's been fantastic sharing our penguins with you on a nightly basis. And I do look forward to seeing the water watchers who do come to the parade. It's always lovely to meet you. And for our new viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. You are more than welcome to come down to the Penguin Parade at any time. Say hello to the rangers down here. You can say hello to myself. You can say hello to Tom, Sky, Jordan, Megan, Michael, Rach. There's lots of us here. We all love having a bit of a chat with you guys and sharing our passions with the penguins, with the world in general. So thanks again for tuning in. We wish you all the best, and please tune in tomorrow night for Sky and Ray Mears as they have a bit of a chat back and forth. It should be a really interesting stream. All right, thanks for watching. Take care, everybody.